All right, welcome to chapter 22, The Last Portage. The days melted together, and once they reached the Ottawa, home seemed within reach, though Lachine was still 300 miles distant. Pierre was confident their trip would be over soon. The first morning on the Ottawa, Pierre spoke with Charbonneau during breakfast. "It's just a downstream coast from here, eh?" "Well," Charbonneau said, glancing at the sluggish river, "that depends." "On what? Shouldn't we go twice as fast downstream?" "We should, but the current may be weaker than you remember." True to Charbonneau's word, the country got progressively drier. The river was a mere trickle in places, and their progress was as slow as their upstream travel had been in the spring. Many of the rapids were unsafe to run, and short stretches they tracked or paddled demi-charge in May were now portages. Pierre suddenly felt as if he'd never get home. The miles seemed like years. Images of Lachine grew hazy, and the harder he tried to fix the pictures in his mind, the faster they slipped away. Sometimes in the middle of a paddle stroke, a face would flash before him. With the suddenness of a scarf pulled from a magician's sleeve, his mother or father or Celeste would appear, yet as quickly as the shapes became whole, they faded. The vanishing scared Pierre. There was no calling the faces back once they were gone. It reminded him too much of the way he felt about Lalande. So as they worked their way downriver, Pierre thought more and more about his father. He replayed the wood chopping accident in his mind, and he worried about the summer of pain that his father must have suffered. He feared that the jumbled images in his head meant something bad was to come. To forget his worries, he tried reading La Vérendrye's journal during the long summer evenings, but the explorer's stories about his search for a western passage to the sea and the death of his son on Massacre Island made Pierre more homesick than ever. Charbonneau noticed in his impatience one evening as they sat beside the fire. "If you want a thing too badly, it never comes," he said. "It shows that much?" "To survive," Charbonneau continued, "you must look on the journey as the same as your paddling. But the time goes so slowly. That is the sweetness of the traveling life. Time is frozen by the journey. While most men worry away their lives, counting coins and filling ledgers, we voyageurs live with the magic of the open water." Charbonneau looked from the river to the distant hills as he talked. "We travel as the sun and the wind allow. All the places we've been are with us every moment of our lives." Just then, Michel Laracoque walked by the campfire, and Pierre teased him. "So how are the legs holding up, old fellow?" "Old fellow?" Laracoque repeated, stopping to glare at Pierre. "That's right," Pierre grinned. "I've heard that jumpers age real fast if they don't get their practice." "We shall see." Laracoque immediately turned to gather wood. When the fire was roaring, Laracoque approached Pierre. "After you, monsieur," he said, gesturing toward the dancing flames. Pierre stood and he stretched his legs, knowing it was best not to hesitate. He trotted to the far end of the camp, and then he turned back toward the fire, sprinting hard. He leaped, fearing for a moment that he jumped too soon. Pierre wheeled his arms and he extended his feet straight out. The flames singed his calves, but he landed clear of the embers and he rolled immediately back to his feet. The crewmen cheered. Laracoque laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. "A fine leap, Pierre. I see our hard portaging has toughened your legs as well as your back." As Laracoque and a dozen other men jumped the fire, Pierre thought back to the night when Lalande and Bellois had rolled in the ashes and tried to beat each other senseless. Though it was only a month or so ago, it seemed as if a lifetime had passed. Time reeled backward as the brigade shot the turbulent Roche Capitan and made the long carries at Dajochum and Grand Calumet. Though it did little to quiet Pierre's mind, they drew even ever closer to home, leaving Chats Falls, Deschutes, and Chaudrières behind. On the Long Sault, just 2 days shy of home, they met one of the few brigades still heading north. The outfit was bound for Mackinac, and the leader of the group stopped to ask Charbonneau about the water level on the upper reaches of the river. Pierre shouldered his parcels, anxious to complete what promised to be the final carry of the trip. When Pierre arrived on the shore of Two Mountain Lake, the last group on the northbound brigade was just starting out. Two men knelt before an open pack. One fellow said, This should fix young Nolan." While the second man stuffed something into the blankets on top of the pack. He chuckled as he pulled the straps down tight. Pierre knew what they were planning. He tossed down his parcels and he hurried up the trail. He would find the boy and he would warn him about the trick. When Pierre finally met a timid young voyageur, he asked, "Are you Nolan?" The boy, startled that a stranger would know his name, nodded. Pierre was about to say, "It might be wise to check your next pack," but he stopped. As he studied the determination in the boy's eyes, Pierre suddenly saw himself on his own first portage. In that instant he realized it would be wrong to take the thing from this boy that was his right to earn. So instead of warning him, Pierre nodded curtly, just as he knew the old-timers would, and he said, "Have a good journey." Then Pierre was off to complete his final carry. Wow. Should Pierre have warned the guy? Or did he do the right thing? What do you think?